Hey, what's up? This is Paul Solt from Super Easy Apps. In this video, I'm going to show you how to update a really old project. So if you've got an issue where all the code that you're following is not working, if you've got a crash on start, if you're looking on Stack Overflow and you're stuck and you have no idea what to do, this video is going to help you overcome some of those challenges. I'm going to show you some of the fixes, some of the reasons why things are broken, as well as how to deal with the error that we're seeing right here. So this error that we're seeing is telling us that Xcode 9 cannot update from Swift 2 to Swift 4 or above. And so if you're watching this now, you're probably like, oh, I have to download Xcode 9. And I would recommend that you don't do that because you can manually do it yourself. It just requires a little bit more knowledge of Swift. And so if you're a beginner, that can be a little bit hard, but I'm going to walk you through the process. I'm going to help you get started. A lot of the autocompletes and the code suggestions will actually fix the problems for us. We just can't automate everything all at once. And so we'll take advantage of that. There's some project settings that you do need to update. I'll show you how to do all of that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the app down below working. So I've got it working right now. And if I type the exclamation mark, it matches a secret password that enables this button so that we can change the background color. That's all this does. If I don't type the password, you can see that it's no longer enabled. I can't click the button. All right, so that's all we're going to do. We're going to get this simple application working. There's actually a lot of things that are broken. The storyboard files need to be updated. The auto layout constraints need to be updated. The code needs to be updated. The outlets are all broken, so it's just not going to work if you follow this. And this is coming from a video that I did in 2015. So I did this a long time ago. It's one of my popular videos still, and it's super out of date. So I want to show you how to fix it. If you watch my previous video that I uploaded, it's going to show you how to do it the new way. And this will show you everything that has changed, and I'll discuss more in details. This one's going to be a little bit longer, but if you're interested in that, click the like button, subscribe down below, and let's get started. So let's figure out how to do this without downloading and installing Xcode 8, which I wouldn't recommend unless you're really desperate. We can manually do this ourselves, and we're going to go through and do it one line at a time. All right, so let's switch this over to an iPhone 8 simulator. And if we go ahead and build, we're going to see that this version is not supported. So the first thing that we'll have to fix, and let me just copy that so we can have reference for this. Let's do a new, I'm just going to, so I like to have, I'm working on some blog posts. I have a log file that I typically put stuff into. I'm not going to put it in there. I'm just going to put some of these error messages in this window, just so I have some reference in my blog post. And this will be update Swift 2 to Swift 4. So I've already done videos like this, but every case is a little bit different. And the outlet changes was really bothering me. And I had some questions on YouTube, so I wanted to go ahead and show you how to do this. All right, so first things first, we have to change the build version, and we go into the project properties. Now, if you've never used an IDE before, that's an integrated development environment. Xcode is sort of our big thing that will allow us to do anything we want. And this is sort of our coding environment. It's all our asset management. It's all of the build time, uploading, simulators, previews, storyboard, interface design, all of that stuff all in one. And there's lots of build settings that are these sort of secretive, super nerdy settings that will make your application work or not work. And so a lot of this we don't need to know anything about, but occasionally some of these settings need to be changed. And so I'm going to show you how to change the ones that are relevant for updating to iOS 11, Xcode 9, or Swift 4. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to come over to the build settings. Now, we've got tabs within tabs in Xcode. So click on project settings over on the left, then click on build settings for your current target. Now, you have to be on the target. I don't know if being on the project will allow us to update some of this as well. I do want to make a change in here, but we'll work on the Swift version first. So in here, we're going to set the Swift version to Swift 4. We do have the option for Swift 3.2, which is the same as 3.1, except it's supported in Xcode 9. All right, so let's go with Swift 4. Swift 5 is around the corner. Swift 2, I think, just came out. It's in beta right now. Actually, no, Xcode might have an update. I don't even know. So that's something to keep in mind. Going forward, you're going to have a different version of Swift here, but 4.0 or later is going to work, and that's going to be applicable to what we're doing today. All right, so that's one change we need to make. Now, if we do that, we're going to get lots of compile time errors, but we're also going to get some fix-it suggestions with Xcode. It hopefully will try and build. It'll tell us about all these things that are warnings that don't exist or are bad. The other thing we're going to make a change for is we're going to click on the project settings. Now, if you do not see these tabs, click this little button and click on project change. And so this will allow us to set project-wide settings. Now, there's a base SDK, which is set to latest, but there's also a deployment SDK. And so this was back in iOS 8 is when I did this video and this demo. So that was 3 years ago. And I'm going to bump this up to Xcode 11. I'm not going to go for the latest point release. That way it works on anything that's running iOS 11 that's not fully up to date. All right, so that will give us all of the new changes. Now that's going to give us more things that might be broken. When we make these types of changes, it'll tell us if we're working with older APIs, if they're deprecated or not. I recently had to do an update for Artwork Evolution, and I just submitted it yesterday, and hopefully it gets approved. If not, I'll have to make some additional tweaks, but I have so many warnings because so many things are deprecated from when I wrote it 7 years ago. All right, so first things first, let's update to recommended settings. This will add a lot of extra warnings as well as other things, and it will improve the build time. So if we go ahead and do that, if we build again, we might see more errors and more warnings. So that's going to fluctuate. All right, so those are all the project settings that we need to change in the project settings. Back in the target, I'm not seeing it. If we switch it back to all, there is a Objective-C setting that you might have to toggle. And let me see if I can find it. It's a Swift 3 inference. And if your older project, you might not, this one doesn't have it on, but I think that's because it was before Swift 3. So if you had a Swift 3 project, you're going to see that this is on and there's going to be a warning. So if I build this right now, it's going to say, and it was very at the bottom, use of Swift 3 Objective-C inference in Swift 4 is deprecated. Please address the deprecated. So they want you to fix all of these changes. Now, I don't have any changes to fix here, but you're going to want to set this to default to get rid of that warning. And that means that some of your code will break if it's missing the Objective-C declaration, and that's what you'll need for a target action. We'll see that Xcode should insert that if we need it, but I don't know if it will. All right, so let's go sort of line by line and fix what's changed. So the button enabled setting is now called is enabled. So that's one thing that we can just do the fix it for. And we can do the same thing for all of these. So if you want, you could copy and paste, and that might be faster than clicking on those little buttons. The other thing is, I think, okay, so validate text. So this changed 3 different things that we're going to see here. So before, this was an optional. So this label wasn't required in Swift 2. But in Swift 3, Apple's like, nah, that's required. And so they added this unnamed variable thing. It's going to cause everything to break. And so I'll fix this one. But since we have text here, we have to write the label right here. So that is new. That will get that to build. We're going to see some crashes. I want to show you the crashes before I fix the issues. All right, so this is no longer a function. So it's going to tell you to get rid of the function call. And then it's still not correct. What you're going to see is this also changed again. It's now a property, so it's just renamed to green, and there we go. So that's going to fix our color. And if we wanted to, we could just write this as .green. And hopefully, if Xcode's liking you, it's going to give you code suggestions if you type escape as you're typing this. Sometimes it doesn't provide really valid or valuable ones. The other thing I'm going to add is this is complaining about an optional value. As far as I know, the text value is always set. It always has a value. The default is an empty string. So you can always force unwrap this property. It's never going to be an issue unless something's seriously wrong with your iPhone. That will always be set. It's more likely that your text field is not connected properly. Then this is going to fail. So that's safe to do. And what's next? All right, so what else? Oh, our app delegate. So our app delegate, if we jump in here, so this is where I was talking about unnamed. This changed across so many APIs. all of these functions are slightly different. If you click on this, it should make it, now this one's wrong actually. This signature changed so much from Swift 2 to Swift 4 that it's not recognizing it. So what we're going to do is just comment this out, and we'll just start typing that again. So we'll just say application, and then we're going to look for did finish launching. So if you start typing did finish, you should see that the top two are what we're looking for, but it's actually the with options. So if we type with options, that's going to be this one here. And what had changed, I believe, is the type of object. So that it's now UI launch options key and any versus NS object. So it's going to give you a little bit more assistance as you're working, but if it's an old project, it's really confusing because it doesn't look the same. And there's actually a default setting for that wasn't there before. It's more explicit. And the other thing that we're going to see is all of these have the unnamed parameter, which means that they can be called without providing the label application. You just call this function. All right, so that will fix this first one. So I'll just get rid of the old one because that's no longer needed. We don't need to keep old code, and we do need to return true. So that is the one thing that we need there. Otherwise, things might not work as we expect. And so this one's going to tell us that we can rename. Actually, it's giving us two options. So the first one actually did work, and all that did was inserted this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and copy this and paste it everywhere instead of going for those fix-its because they'll be a little bit slower to actually do. So all we need is that underscore in front. This means it's an unnamed parameter, which makes it behave the same as it did in Swift 2 because we don't need the label. So that's all that's doing. But we need this change, otherwise the function doesn't match. And so it's a totally different function if we don't have that. All right, so that will fix all of our runtime issues. I'll go and run it. It should crash when I start it up. So let's see what happens. All right, so the moment I type a key, or if I were to be able to click on that button, it should crash. This is going to send an event, and the event is not right. So I typed T, but nothing appeared because now we see that Xcode finally catching up and it's saying, okay, we just stopped. We're in the main function. We've had a signal abort, and it's a signal that is because we've got an exception. And the exception is the really interesting thing. So you're going to want to look at this, and this is a common issue that you're going to have with any of your UI elements that have been connected with an outlet and an action, mostly just an action. And they're all going to be broken because we need that underscore. All right, so, and the signature changes slightly, but you can get away with some of your old signatures as well. So we've got this gobbledygook. This is our stack frame. None of that really matters. All that matters is that we look first at the top. Anytime you have a crash like this, look at this error message. This is going to tell you everything you need to know. This is an unrecognized selector sent to instance, and this is the selector that was sent. So text field editing did change to instance, and now this is our object. So this is the view controller itself. If we jump back to the other code file, our view controller has a memory address. That's what this is. It's super cryptic. So that's what we're seeing here, and we're going to see the reason. So it's a invalid argument exception. The reason is unrecognized selector sent to instance. Okay, so this is our clue that this is the problem. So you're going to look everywhere in your project for that. And you're going to find that it's in a couple different places. So there's a selector here that needs to be updated in code. There's the name here, and then there's the link here. So if we jump into our storyboard file, the first thing that we're going to see in an old project is that we now need to choose a view. Before it used to be some amorphous blob, and now we have previews that match the actual devices, which actually makes it a lot easier to design the UI to match a design from Sketch. All right, so we're going to just choose iPhone 8. That's the default for all of these, so you can do that. That will fix that up a little bit. If you want to get the other one out of the right way, click on the launch screen, choose the device to be iPhone 8. That will sort of change this. Though this one doesn't look like it updated very well. New in Xcode 9 or 8, we have a storyboard file that gets used instead of the XIB file. So this one's a little bit legacy, but we've just updated that file to sort of be the new one. All right, so We're getting this error because the signature has changed. Now, I can show you what it's going to look like for the new signature so you can compare and contrast what we had. And I'll keep this in for just demo purposes. So let's go to our assistant editor and we'll drag a new connection in for this did change event. So if we click on our text field, we can click on this and we can do a new editing change by just dragging from this little circle. And we can call this text field editing changed. And I'll just call it editing changed. And this allows us to override the property, but we've already selected the one we wanted. So that's just another option. And it's going to be a type any. We could make this the UITextField, and that would give us the type information. And then we can hit connect. So let's look at how that looks now, just to sort of see what this looks like in code. And so what that has done is, if I just make them the same indentation, I changed the name, so I could have written did change, but I didn't do that. The thing that's different is we now have this underscore and the type has changed. Typically it would default to any, or we can override it to be the actual object that's going to be sending the event, which in this case is going to be a UI text field. All right, so that's the critical piece. I'm just going to comment out the old one. And then I'll go ahead. So this would be Swift 2, and this is Swift 4. All right, so that's that, but now we still have two of them connected. So now I'm still gonna get a crash, so I need to make sure I remove the old one. And so we'll go in here and we have the did change. I'll just get rid of that one. So we now just have the one, and that should match up. You could get rid of both and reconnect it if you're concerned that you got the wrong one, or if it crashes on start, then that's the issue. All right, so that should work now. And that was just a simple change, but I wanted to show you how to auto-generate it. We can go and programmatically change any of these that are connected. So right now, if that button was pressed, it will also crash. So if I type in secret with the exclamation mark, we can click the button will crash. And so this is where you'll run into runtime crashes with your applications if they have any outlets set on these buttons. So you're going to have to go through your code and comb it to sort of clean things up. So we can just add the underscore here, which will give us the unnamed parameter. And if you wanted to, you could change this to any, or in this case, this could be a UI button. That would just give you more explicit type information when you're using it. And then if we go ahead and run this again, we should see that it should go green and it shouldn't crash anymore. And then I'm not sure if there's anything else to fix. So we'll have to check to see if there's any auto layout constraints that got changed. So I'll type in secret, click the button, it doesn't crash, it works. So we've updated those two. I'm gonna just fix the indentation. I'll select everything and I'll do Control I. That'll re-indent our code so that everything is in the right spot. All right, so that shows you sort of how to fix those issues and what has changed. The other thing, if we go to our warnings, we should have a new trailing constraint warning. So because of changes to some stuff, this is going to give us some different values. And let's see how this is hooked up. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to stretch this out. So we could go with the fix it that. So I'll show you actually how to find the issue. So in here, you're going to see this warning, but it's actually this little button up top. So in the document outline, click on that, and this will give you more details. And there's actually a fix it in here. So if we did this, this would add a little fix it. This just prevents the text from clipping anything. And this is important when UI flips in a right to left language versus a left to right language. So English is a left to right language, but Arabic or something like that is going to go the other way. And so that's where these UI constraints are really important. And I'm not exactly certain why that's looking like it's going over it, but that's one way to fix it. The other way to fix it, if I just delete this constraint, is I could, for this one, I just want this above, so I could just drag it so it matches. And I think the distance has actually changed. So I'm just going to re-indent this a little bit. Not sure what's going on here. the margins are definitely different from, if I start top to bottom, we'll get this squared away. I'm just going to remove all these constraints. So let's just clear the constraints. And I don't want that directly under. I want to move everything down a little bit more because I feel like we want some space. I guess that'll give us some space. Just a little bit. And I want this on this edge right there. I want this below that, and then right underneath, and then there. And we'll bring this one back, and we'll put this one right underneath. Now, we're getting some aliasing here because these lines are so small, so I'll zoom in. This is a single pixel line, and on a non-retina display, it just doesn't display correctly, so we get some artifacting. Don't worry about that. So we could run it as is, or we could fix up the auto layout. I'll use the TIE Fighter button at the bottom. We'll add these constraints to the margins. And actually, one of the other things I don't think I have in this, we might want to make sure it's set. I don't think this is set up for auto layout properly. So let's go back to our storyboard file. And we don't have safe area guides. So I'm going to turn that on so that we can support the iPhone X. Without that, our spacing might be a little bit different. So that's under the file settings for the storyboard. Actually, no, I think it's per view controller. So I just enabled that, which is going to be useful. Doesn't look like the actual storyboard file is giving me anything except localized here. All right, so that will set that up so that we now have the correct margins, and I'll just double check to make sure that the margins are good. Now what I can do is I can click on these and we can just use the TIE Fighter, the square TIE Fighter button, set up the top margin, and we'll set up, this should be 16 and this should be 16. So I think things got a little bit messed up, and we'll add those constraints. So that will sort of tie those top two. And then this button looks a little weird, so I'm going to resize it. It looks like it's resized. And I'm just going to place it right there. I'll set this up to be the vertical space, and then I'll center this horizontally. So center horizontally in safe area. And now we're good to go on the auto layout. And that should get rid of our warning. So two ways to fix the warning. One is to redo the layout, which I guess kind of makes sense now that we have safe areas. You're going to want to turn that on. And yeah, make sure that it opens in Xcode 9. And then if we type secret, it should work. If I rotate the phone, we're going to see that the auto layout works. We'll enter the room, it turns green, good to go. All right, so let's see if there's anything else to fix. So we did the launch screen. This isn't the appropriate size, but it doesn't really matter. We could switch this over to like inferred, and that might fix it. So now it's looking a little bit better. If you want, you can change this. You can get rid of it. Haven't updated this. So let's just make it 2018. And there, we're squared away there. Let's see if there's any more warnings. No, I'm not seeing any. Any other settings that I might want to change? I think we're looking pretty good. So that's a little bit about updating a project. The actions themselves have been the biggest source of frustration for beginners because they don't work as they're written. And if you followed any of my old videos or old tutorials, all that stuff has changed. You need to make sure that you put those underscores. So what we've done is we've updated a project from Swift 2 that was written in 2015 to Swift 4 in 2018. And obviously there's going to be some project setting changes with Swift 5 coming out, but I don't think any of this code will break based on the current sort of list of changes coming out for Swift 5 that have been proposed. I think they're trying to not break a lot of code, so we're not going to see massive changes like we saw with Swift 3, which basically made it so that any tutorial you followed from 2015 and earlier is totally out of date and doesn't work. And even with Swift 4, we still had some changes like that. So Hope this helps. If you like this video, if this was helpful, click the like button and you can subscribe for more updates. This is going to be the second video. I'm sort of redoing, I think, my Swift tips. The last time I did this, I was updating from Swift 1 to Swift 2, and now we're updating from Swift 2 to Swift 4 and beyond. So I hope this was helpful. That's how to sort of work through it. There's actually one more thing. I do want to show you the programmatic approach. This has changed as well. So I'm going to copy this line. So that's the old way of doing it. And if we paste this line, I'm going to uncomment it. And if I can do the right keyboard shortcuts, we're going to take a look at this. All right, so we can clean this up a little bit. Xcode will recommend some stuff for us. So it's going to recommend that we change the API. The API has changed, so it's going to suggest those fixes. So it's going to do like one at a time, potentially, if there's multiple fixes. So it's going to change the 4 control events to 4. And then we're also going to see editing changed. The control event, the Swift API cleanup made all of these, it was a Swift style change. These are all now lowercase. So anywhere you have something like that, it's now going to be a lowercase e for editing. And then the other thing that has changed is, so it's not able to match correctly. So this might fail actually. So if this is failing, it's the old syntax that's a little bit more brittle. Wrap the select name in parentheses. Yikes. That doesn't sound like a good fix. All right, so the fix that I would do for this is we're going to use the new selector syntax. We're going to type selector with the pound symbol. And we can use autocomplete, hopefully, to insert the selector types here. So if I press escape, we should see the text field editing changed. And the nice thing is that we get compile time safety versus runtime crashes. So the old method would crash at runtime if you typed it wrong. So if you had a typo, if you did the wrong selector, it just wouldn't work. This will give us the right selector. And there's 2 ways to do this. I don't know if it matters, but we can do it this way, or we can do it, and I'll just show you without it. And I'm not sure if that's just because we have a single parameter or if that's because it's an unnamed parameter, but this will match the same function and that will allow us to add it. So if I wanted to, we can test this out by seeing which one actually does work. I'll remove this, and if I'm actually telling the truth, we'll find out. So there's no did editing set up there. Now we're going to do it programmatically. And if I'm correct on this, this one should work. So we should see text is typed as I'm typing. And so you can see that we're seeing text here, so it is working. We can comment this one out, and we can uncomment this one. The other change I want to show you is we don't need this anymore. We can just do dot editing changed. And now if you're typing this, because it knows the type of the parameter, we can just do dot, and then hopefully you'll get some recommendations. Now, if you press escape, you'll see everything, and that's not very helpful. And I think this is broken in Xcode because code completion is not working properly for me. What we should see is something that would be just for the UI control events, and it's not showing us that. So I'm going to start typing editing, and we'll see editing changed. So that's how you can get to it without typing as much. Now, if you really like code completion and you can't remember these things, just type UI control events, which is the same as the type. And then we can just do dot, and this will just show us UI control events plus some of the functions, I guess, that operate on them. All right, so here you'll see all of the events, and so we want the editing changed. And once we do that, we can get rid of that. We can keep that. That will work. And if we run this, I'll just prove that it actually does work. So let's see what happens. And so it's still working. We're still getting those editing events. So that's the whole point of using this API. I wanted to show you how to fix this for Swift 4, how to update the project. I updated the storyboard. I added the safe area for iPhone X. Lots of things have changed, and hopefully this was helpful. So click the like button if it was, and I'll see you in the next video. I've got a dev live video coming out about our update that we're trying to submit to the App Store, and then I've got some updates for Artwork Evolution as well. I just submitted that last night. I'm trying not to get rejected from the store, but it might get rejected. And I still have to finish up the course. I was posting iPhone Apps 101. So if you've been following along with that, there's some more videos. I think I've got 2 to 4 remaining that need to get published. So I need to upload those as well. So I'll catch you around. Hopefully you enjoy this video or the other videos, and let me know if you have any questions down below, or if you have topics that you're stumped on that I can help you with. All right, I'll catch you later. Have a great day.